Consciousness is vast, reality is fluid, and what we call the paranormal may just be part of the human experience. We move through life searching for certainty, but every so often something happens that challenges what we think we know. A flicker of movement in an empty room, an intuition too strong to ignore, or a moment that lingers long after it's passed. Some call it supernatural, others call it psychological, but maybe it's both. I'm Mallory, a therapist exploring the threshold between psychology, the supernatural, and the transformations that happen in between. Whether it's unexplained phenomena, personal awakenings, or the ways our subconscious and the unknown intertwine, this is a space to wonder, to question, and to explore what these experiences mean for us. Because what matters most isn't what we experience, it's how it transforms us. Welcome to the Liminal Mind.
Welcome back to the Liminal Mind. Today's episode is part 3 of my ongoing conversation with Jess, hypnotherapist, psychic medium, and intuitive guide. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I would encourage you to check those out first for some really important context. In this segment, we shift into a deeper conversation about safety, both emotional and spiritual. Jess shares the contraindications for hypnotherapy and why it's so important to protect clients who may be navigating complex mental health concerns. We also talk about Jess's personal experience with a family member who has struggled with mental health challenges and how that shaped her understanding of the difference between spiritual communication and psychological distress. Finally, we explore the topic of negative energy and how discernment, boundaries, and calling in higher help are all part of spiritual empowerment. So, let's dive in.
I know in your screening you have questions about certain
medications or, all those kind of things. But so there are some of those that are contraindicated, but there are also some almost like personality types, which sounds funny. So for example, if we're doing hypnotherapy, we say that we're working kind of with everyday people with everyday problems, that it would be beyond my scope of practice to work with someone who is, say, schizophrenic or where their grasp of what is reality is not solid. Schizophrenia is one. Somebody cycling in a manic phase where they've gone into delusion and all that. Part of the challenge with the type of hypnotherapy I practice, because we follow emotions, we follow feelings. So sometimes people will find that they struggle because the meds that they take flatline. And take your meds, like that is important. No, it's not that you're not good at hypnosis. It's just you are being chemically held to be more neutral. So where we're asking you to let yourself really feel a feeling or really build an emotion and let it be there, you won't have the same experience. It is also important that the person who's coming for the therapy wants to be there. And that sounds ridiculous, but if you don't want to do it, nothing's going to change.
Right.
The other thing I've had, and I'm going to stereotype here, sorry guys, but it's more often with men who decide that they know what the process is. They want to tell me that we need to talk about this and we need to talk about that. And I'm like, nope, that's not how this works. We all have these stories of like, okay, in hindsight, those don't happen so much anymore.
You have that first session to kind of test the waters and work on meditation at home for a little bit before you come back so we can get to a good place and get started and do the work. But I love that on your intake you also have the psychological reasons. Like you said, I have warnings in here. Yes, these things happen and it's about making meaning, but I also have a duty to keep people safe.
Right.
If I'm listening to these kind of stories, okay, what does that mean for you? Does that feel scary? Does that feel supportive? Kind of getting to these questions of like, okay, but is this a psychological break, medical intervention versus me when I was a kid and I'm like, I'm seeing this person or I'm hearing this voice. I wouldn't have passed those tests either. Intake that's like, do you see or hear things that other people don't? Well,
all the time.
Yeah, actually I do.
Exactly.
And at the time, it was scary to me because I didn't have context for it.
Absolutely.
So having someone to like sit down and ask you more about it
Did you ever watch the show Psychic Kids?
Yes.
I loved that.
Love it.
And I loved that they have a psychologist that comes with to, ask the kids, is this other stuff that's going on at home that's manifesting in this way? How are you dealing with the anxiety? And again, not having a framework for reference causes so much of that anxiety around it. And I think that's a big part of where I draw that line. I was in school and I was like, I do not want to be a psychiatrist. I don't want to be the person putting people on meds. And again, I'm doing the assessment. I'm making sure that nobody's going to be like harmful to self or other. But sort of the message that you gave earlier around the mediumship, is this for a purpose of growth? And is it coming from a place of love?
Right.
And if it's not, then we have to get a little more specific. But you also have the experiences of people that you know and love that do have some more of psychological aspects.
Absolutely.
Or how they cross over. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
I have sat with a family member going to be admitted to psych ward and listening to the intake questions and having that same feeling of like, if I answered these, I would not pass. But I have never been more in my right mind than I am right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm watching my loved one who has left planet Earth, who is not in their right mind at all, who cannot stabilize themselves, who cannot tell real from imagined, who a whole lot of dysfunction happening. This is absolutely the place that they need to be for their safety and to help re-establish rhythms in their body, the sleep cycle and everything else. Just sitting there and scanning. So there is something called medical mediumship, and it's not about diagnosing. It's noticing what is in the energy field that is off balance or doesn't belong there. You scan, and for those people who are aware of the chakra system, 7 major energy centers that run in a line down the midline of the body. So as I sat with my family member, gone into such a dysregulated state, I was just trying to sit and be peace and be calm and all those things, even while all around me is scary and chaos. And as I scanned and noticed the root chakra, it was down by his left knee, displaced off to the side of his body. And then the sacral chakra, the next one, which should be again in the low belly, off to the side, not even in line with the outline of his body.
Okay.
So the heart was tiny, like it had shrunk down. And this is a person who normally you would think of, he has a huge heart, kind, very loving person, but it was odd. And then as you got to the third eye, wasn't even there. It looked like his forehead had exploded. There was just nothing. And when you looked in there, it was like looking into the cosmos. It was the first time I tried to do this. It made me think in a whole different way of people who are having these episodes, that from that energy body standpoint, all the layers are affected. The physical body, the energy body, the emotional body, the mental body, like all of it. It was really fascinating to me. Now, part of how do you tell the difference, for any of the people who are sort of clairsentient, who have the feeling, it feels completely different to be sitting next to this person that looks familiar but doesn't appear to be like all in there. The messages that come from spirit, when we're talking about making spirit connection, that is always positive, life-affirming, uplifting. It's never going to tell you you have to do something. Spirit will not violate your free will. They might say, hey, have you thought about this? Where the dysregulated ones, the ones that we would say are an illness or something else happening, you can have those voices that are nasty. They're telling you to hurt yourself or hurt other people. Or you can have intrusive thoughts that will not stop. Where in psychic mediumship work, one of the main characteristics of it is you can turn it on and you can turn it off. And if you can't turn it off, something else might be going on. The other thing is that we work with the idea of being the sovereign soul in the body. Sovereign meaning your word is law. You say no. Say I'm a medium and there's a spirit that wants to connect with me at 3 o'clock in the morning and I want to sleep. And I say, back up. We're done. Like, that's it. My word is law. If you are with somebody who's having one of these episodes, they often feel powerless because it doesn't matter what they say. Or it feels like they're being messed with in a way like for sport. They feel victimized. That's completely opposite of, when we're working in that healthy spiritual way. Person is coming from a great position of power in a healthy way. And would never, ever be told to take your life or
harm someone
or never. You would never have a message like that. It's part of when we talked earlier about people who are born for whatever reason with their mediumship turned on. Mm-hmm. Many people don't realize that spirit can show themselves in any form, any age that they want to. So sometimes they show themselves in what we call their death state because it's part of how they give some information about, hey, story to tell. Mm-hmm. Your light is on. I want to come and tell you. So one of the things that happened to me as when I was a kid is seeing somebody who died in a fire. So if you see somebody who's covered with 3rd-degree burns and you're trying to explain to people around you, there's a guy over there who's skin is hanging off and he looks all bloody and black and terrible.
Doesn't sound super
sounds like a nightmare, right? But that could also be that spirit person is just going, hey, I'm Bob. I died in a fire. This is what I looked like. As a medium who has worked at this ability, I know now to go, okay, you can take that away now. I got that piece of information. I don't need to see you in that state anymore and recognize that it's just information. It's not a haunting. It was a guy who died that way.
Yeah, making meaning and the narratives that we give to things, right? Mm-hmm. The more that you work with your abilities and recognizing that you do have power in the ways that you're communicating and that you can set boundaries. Like, hey, 10 p.m. until 6, nobody's talking to me. I'm sleeping. Or the way that you're presenting is uncomfortable for me.
Back up.
Change something about it or communicate in a different way.
Right.
And so that's also something that I did not learn for a very long time. And so I'm curious to know how my experience in the house that I grew up in would have gone differently had I known that was
happening?
A thing that you could do.
Yes, absolutely.
I just remember being so scared and not knowing that I could say, hey, get out of my space.
Yeah.
Or don't communicate in that way. Because I would always say, I'm so scared. And at one point, somebody was like, no, you're startled.
Yes.
Because it is startling to turn and there's no real living person in the space, but you see a person or you hear a person. Mm-hmm. Yes, that can be startling because you're not expecting it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that person or that situation in and of itself is scary.
Right.
And so having that ability in some
That's
of
huge.
our work, you talk about turning the knobs on the radio to find the frequencies and the attunements that work for you.
Yeah.
Everyone has these abilities and it's what you put into it. But I think a big part of, we're in Nebraska. It's very conservative. So spirituality is not always well received anyway.
Right.
But then you talk about mediumship or even Reiki or energy practices like emotion code. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that people are automatically oh, you're playing with the devil. That's bad. And I think it's really interesting that spirituality isn't real, but then there's still this idea of negative entities or evil that is able to access us. You just said we have free will, and so we have power. But if that part isn't taught, what is your perspective on when people are saying, oh, this person is possessed or they're being bothered by a cantankerous old man spirit, right? When can you set boundaries and how do you know if you need help from someone else?
Right.
And if those are more you're startled, but it seems scary and overwhelming because you're not used to this kind of conversation. and someone you go to maybe is in a religious setting and they're like, oh, you are possessed.
Right.
You're being taken over, or this is an evil, whatever. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you deal a little bit with the religious trauma, which that's starting to come up for me in my practice a lot too.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Again, I want to be respectful of all belief systems, but it is very important to be aware of when you've led from a place of fear before you've completely got the information of the situation, or you've, as you're talking about being scared. But startled is a more accurate word before you've even assessed a threat level. So before we go on, I'm going to just say, for people who don't know, I am a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I have a recommended black in Philippines Combatives, which uses sticks and knives. I teach self-defense. The reason I say that is I want people to understand that I also inhabit very grounded physical. I don't spend all of my time out there in the clouds.
Yeah.
And I can break boards with my hands and my feet and my elbows and all that kind of stuff. And that learning, I didn't come to in my life until I was already like 40. I didn't start when I was little. But you learn about your own power. Gives you sort of confidence. So in my time as a hypnotherapist, I have encountered clients who had attachments, who had dark energies that need to be removed. It is not just because I'm unique that I can call on what we call high vibrational spirits for help. Anyone can. If you come from a background where you might call on Archangel Michael, do it. You're calling on angels, you're calling on Jesus. It doesn't matter who it is. Everyone has access, direct, immediate access to help. Even if it's, I don't understand this situation, help me to understand this, or contain this situation until I get more in, that kind of thing. So first, by starting that everyone has the access to higher powers, and things that often seem scary or seem intimidating often actually are not once you have a little more experience with this. One that's very common is people who are psychically open, psychically sensitive, often experience a lot of anxiety. Now, I don't want to diminish their experience. I've had panic attacks, all those kind of things. It's not fun. But in that overlapping way that we're talking about, when you are going from a lower vibration to a higher vibration, as your body and your energy field adjusts, you will pass through a feeling where your heart rate will speed up, where your breathing will change, and your mind is going to, because your mind is thinking, think. It's going to think. We're afraid, which means there has to be something to be afraid of. So it will translate it as fear. But if you can take that moment to go, no, I'm noticing that my heart rate has changed, or I'm noticing this, I'm just going to write it out. And so for those people who are actually experiencing a frequency change, once you recognize that that's what's happening to you, you don't have that same level of anxiety around it because you're just waiting to pass through it. Now, that may not be what's happening 100% of the time, but it could be part of the time. And nobody teaches you that when you're a kid. I've had clients where I'm calling on the highest powers that are out there. Clear this, take this away, take anything that's like it as well, remove any evidence. It is something that we were actually taught about in my hypnosis training. What do you do when you encounter something odd? In my training, it actually was almost like this throwaway lesson. It was this little small kind of oh, isn't this funny? You'll never see this, but we got to talk about it kind of thing. And it became a big part of what I do, almost from the beginning. Whoa, I should have taken more notes on that day because this is happening. But I've also then had experiences. Recently, it was in a mediumship development group, and we're in a group meditation where we're encouraging everybody to basically give voice to what they're perceiving, whether it's a feeling or a thought or a sound or an image. And coming into my awareness and several other people simultaneously was what my brain wanted to turn into a hellscape, in that it was very dark, in a feeling of open space, but in the distance, glowing orange, like if there was a fire on the horizon, you'd have that glow. And then all these black lumps, black. And again, dark night, so there's not a lot of detail or color. Very like horror movie creepy. And I can hear other people in the garden going, what?
The upside down.
What are we looking at? And I was like, okay, wait a minute, because we have set our intentions. We have cleared ourselves. We have called in our teams. We've done all the steps to be clear and healthy and balanced channels. So I trust this is a teachable moment then. There was something happening to learn from. So I'm asking now my guides, you're going to have to help me with this. Help me understand this. And it was almost like these lumps, sort of like if you were looking at shrubs or something in the dark. It's just dark lumps around you, but they kind of looked sticky or like if they had tar. And again, all of it very atmospheric, like horror movie. What became apparent was I heard the guidance, send them love. I'm like, them who? What am I like? I don't even know what I'm looking at. So I'm just sort of trying to be love. And as we do that, and I'm saying this to the group, so just be love. Up out of one of these lumps, out of several lumps, pops a person. But they're not sticky like if you were in tar or oil. Clean to about the chest. And they're looking around, blinking, wide-eyed, like,
what am I doing?
What am I doing here? And we're just saying, we're sending you love. And I'm still asking, I need clarification. Guidance is saying the heavy stickiness is their own beliefs. Further refine that these are people who have really, really racist beliefs, sort of like join the KKK, that type of generational, they were brought up with this stuff. And I said, okay, can we clear them all? Clear 3. Can we clear all of them? And the guide said, no, they have to choose. Nothing is holding them there but their own beliefs. This whole scene that looks so scary and intimidating and like eternal, they did it. It's in their mind. And as soon as you hear these people who have popped up go, we get to choose like that? When you see them disappear right out of the muck, all by themselves. And so sometimes it's really important to remember to not jump to that conclusion of, I'm in a scary place because it looks scary. Why am I here? Knowing that you are always protected, always connected to higher level guidance. What is it important for me to know about this? My thing is I ask to be in service of the divine. So basically, how do I bring more love to this situation? Or how can I serve for the highest good?
Yeah.
And they were like, aim to love, and some of them are going to get it and pop themselves out and go on to whatever is next for them.
I love that. So
there's all kinds of like layers to it. Stuff that appears scary, that's not really stuff where the guy, again, is burned and showing himself in his death state, where it's just, I have the power to go, okay, I don't want to see that anymore. Like when you realize that you have the power. And those clients who are like talking to me in different voices and all the bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
All of it.
Well, I'm thinking of one of our group meetings. And I'm trying to remember if this was the same group, if it was the same like energy that initially presented as like a little girl, but it was like a paper doll almost, if you remember.
Right, flat
and
two-dimensional.
Yeah, and it was just like something is off
this
here.
Is weird.
What's going on? And then realizing that it was sort of like this trickster energy. And so once we kind of called that out, it was like that paper doll little girl fell off. And then all of a sudden next to me was this, I say little girl, but maybe more like tween, I don't know.
Right.
But kind of like curled up in a ball, holding knees. It was the whole like the Ring vibe, the dark stringy hair and like, ooh, I'm so creepy. You could feel that entity was trying to present in a way that would be like, I'm so scary.
Right.
And I just like,
I remember this.
Like looking at it and being like, what are you doing?
Why are you here?
And I remember that you picked up on it and it was actually had come with you.
Yeah.
Or somehow, was connected.
Someone that I know, because again, we're going to move this on. Like, you don't need to be in our circle. And the retort that came back was, but you can't. Okay, so I'm calling in the big guns and it was like, no, because I was invited. I didn't invite you. And then this person that I know turned out to be from them. So later on, follow up to this was I went to this person and said, and I described it, and I actually sketched a little bit of what this looked like. And I said, does this have meaning for you? And the person said, yes, it's this character from a movie that scared them. And I said, okay, it's around being obnoxious, would you like to keep it or get rid of it? And the person said, I would like to get rid of it. And I was like, then we're going to cast it out. People do not understand their own power. And not like, okay, please leave. Standing like a black belt. I cast you out.
Yeah.
Done. You're doing it with the emotional push behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole other podcasts. Who are the people and things that you can meet sometimes?
Yeah.
On the other side.
Okay, well, we'll have you back for that one too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. And again, if I had known
Right.
that I could do that, but even when I started learning about clearing your space and, setting intentions, and it was, I had horror movies as my...
Absolutely.
Like, this is where I'm getting my knowledge from, or people saying, you're this and take your space. But what if I'm, not strong enough, or I just make it mad? I've talked to other people, too, who have had that, yeah, I want it gone, but, I don't know if I can do that.
Right.
It's like you have to have the experience of knowing that you can. And so sometimes it's maybe having someone come support you while you're doing it.
Sure.
Or walking you through practicing it. I know for me that was such a big jump from, okay, I'm going to clear my space, but I'm actually terrified the whole time I'm doing it. So I don't know if it's working. Then going into now where even with my kids, how do you tune into my space
absolutely.
when I'm I can't
Yes.
quite figure out what's going on here. And my kids are saying, I'm scared, I'm seeing this or I'm seeing that, and talking them through, bring in some Palo Santo or some incense or whatever, and we're going to reclaim your space. They have little chimes that they can use to,
Nice.
Break up the energy.
You gave them tools.
Yes, but also having them repeat, go away.
Right.
You are not welcome in this space.
Right.
This is my space. Making sure that they're from the chest, that they mean it.
And I was just going to say, it's a reminder that when we are casting something out, or when we are establishing our boundaries or claiming our space or standing in our own power, we are doing that at the soul level. Remember how we talked about the soul is way bigger than what's in the body? Mm-hmm. I know your kids energetically and all those things. They may be in small bodies, but they are not small.
Oh, no.
And that's true of all children. The baby is only the package. The soul is way big. So when the soul says, nah, I'm done, it's coming from that place of absolute authority. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be worried that I have to do some special incantation. Most powerful thing is your intent. You decide. You set your boundaries. You set your intent. You are responsible for your experience. We talk about that when we do psychic mediumship development. If you're not liking what's happening, what did I miss a step, or was I not clear in my intention? One of the universal laws is like attracts like. So if you are putting out there the vibration of being scared and timid, that's what's out there. So it's about learning to take ownership of these abilities that we all have and decide, am I going to let it run my life, or am I running it and it's enhancing my life?
Thanks again for joining us for part 3 of this series with Jess. Conversations like this really highlight why discernment matters, especially when we are exploring altered states, spiritual connection, or subconscious work. If something in this episode resonated with you or brought up questions that you'd like us to explore in future conversations, we would love to hear from you. You can message us on Instagram at The Liminal Mind Podcast, or send us an email at theliminalmind25@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow, subscribe, and consider supporting us on Patreon to keep these meaningful conversations going. Until next time, remember that what matters most isn't what we experience, but how it transforms us.